Now, as the draft approaches next week, there's a chance that the Falcons could come across a quarterback on the board at 8. We don't know how this thing's going to play out. C.J. Stroud meeting with the Falcons. We talked about all these guys coming in. Anthony Richardson joining us right now. Josh Kendall from The Athletic. He covers our Falcons. And, Josh, I want to ask you, what did you get from Ridder, if anything, yesterday? Because I think for Falcon fans, they want to hear from the guy. They want to know what he's thinking, what's going on, what he's been doing. And he kind of gave us a little bit of that yesterday. What did you think?
Well, I thought that he talked in a way that'll make his head coach happy. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't know. But he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I think Arthur Smith will like that. I think Arthur Smith's probably got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too, going into year 3. He talked about just making progress, kind of one foot in front of the other, and, feeling really comfortable in his new role, which is leader of this team. So, we'll see. This is the easy part. This is the part where everybody's excited. But I thought for, an April media session, it went well for Desmond.
Yeah, I mean, look, the kid's saying all the right things to your point, and the coaches, look, they're really behind him. We were talking about this yesterday. The fact that, there was some interest from the fan base about Lamar Jackson, and other folks talked about it around the league. But the fact that you're not talking you're kicking the tires on these players. Carl said this. Why are you even talking to these other quarterbacks other than trying to create some sense of leverage, which seems like a ridiculous, fake in a poker game?
Well, I think that there could be a couple of reasons. There are 3 reasons. They could be interested. In the NFL, you're only as committed to your quarterback as the distance between you and a guy you think is better. If they draft Anthony Richardson at 8, am I going to be really surprised? I am going to be really surprised. Am I just going to fall out of my chair? Probably not. But I don't think that's why they're bringing those guys in. I think they're bringing them in because I think they want a guy to the 8 spot, frankly. I think they would love to get down to the middle of the first round, add more picks back. You still in the middle of first round, then we can start talking about Bijan Robinson seriously. We can start talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba. This team needs a wide receiver. He's the best one probably in this group, but he's just, top 10 is too rich for him. So if Atlanta's bringing in a bunch of these guys who might still be around at 8 and can convince other people that, we're still in the market for a quarterback, it increases the likelihood that Thursday night somebody's going to jump back, is going to make them a nice offer for that 8 pick.
I like what you're saying, Josh, because now when you get into that middle part of this first round, it makes more financial sense to pick those guys that we're talking about. And I love the Bijan Robinson. I love the Njigba idea. I mean, listen, I don't know if Falcon fans are sold on bringing in another wide receiver, but the fact is, who's wide receiver number 2? I hear you now.
Mike Hollins, who's wide receiver number 3, Scotty Miller.
Yeah.
Wide receivers.
But yes, we do. And I was
in the second round.
I don't know if that excites anybody right now. All right, Josh, let me ask you about the O-line. How keen are you on them taking the best offensive lineman at 8 right now?
I'm pretty keen on it. I'm pretty high on it. I think Skoronski makes sense there. I think if you really fall in love with a tackle, they don't need a tackle right now. But if you can get a guy, if you think there's a difference-making multi-year starter at tackle, especially at left tackle, that's worth a top 10 pick, even if you have to be patient. And so let's take Paris Johnson Jr. Let's say they really liked him at tackle and also thought that he might be able to play some left guard for a little while until they really needed a tackle. You bring that kid in, you plug what's a hole at left guard, and then when Jake Matthews and or Caleb McGee, when their careers in Atlanta come to an end for whatever reason, then you're ready to plug that guy in. So I think that there's absolutely a real strong chance that 8 is an offensive lineman.
It is Josh Kendall from The Athletic, guys who covers the Falcons every single day of his life. And, we're talking about the O-line because when I look at the depth chart, I mean, if I'm honest, Josh, I don't really believe in Hennessy or anybody, or certainly not Jalen Mayfield to plug in. So we don't really have the answer right now on the roster, you could argue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Atlanta, if Atlanta goes into the 2023 season with Matt Hennessy as the starting left guard, I think Arthur Smith will feel okay about that. And Arthur Smith will publicly say that he feels very good about that. But I think they would like to upgrade at left guard. So if they don't think Mayfield's going to, the light bulb's going to come on from Mayfield, and I don't know that anybody expects that at this point, then they've got a question mark at left guard and on an offensive line that they really need to continue to be a strength for this team.
Josh, I've said publicly I don't feel like the Falcons are going to be in the Jalen Carter business. If he's there at 8, what is your opinion on that?
I don't think they're going to be in the Jalen Carter business either, but it's a tough call. I mean, if you're sitting there at 8 and there's a guy that you've got real concerns about, whatever bucket you put those concerns in, but you also think is probably the best football player in this draft, that's a tough decision at 8. I think the easiest – the Atlanta Falcons' life is the easiest, I think, if the Seahawks take Carter at 5. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to think what if. You know, either – you know, the team that drafts Jalen Carter is going to get second-guessed for a long time, or every team that passes on Jalen Carter is going to get second-guessed for a long time. That's just how this works.
Right. It's Warren Sapp 2.0. Talking with Josh Kendall from The Athletic. One thing we hadn't talked with you, Josh, about, we brought this up yesterday in the Falcon Report. What about trading up? You know, Dimitrov always traded up. We got 2 drafts with this guy, with Fontenot. Is there any chance they've earmarked a guy at any position that'd be worth trading up for?
No, I think that they still need enough depth that they need all the picks that they've still got. That's all. You know, they got a long gap there from 113 to the 7th round. You know, it's going to be a quiet Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening for Falcons draft folks. So I just don't know if they can give up more picks when you don't know, you don't have a guy circled that you really have to have above you. If they were in the quarterback, seriously in the quarterback market, would that be a different story? Yeah, it might be. I mean, if they think Will Anderson is going to be off the board at 2 or 3 and he is just a generational guy, is it impossible? No, it's not impossible, but I would be real surprised.
All right, Josh. Defensively, I know they spent all the money, it seems like, on the defensive side of the ball. And it makes people wonder, right? This is why I think a lot of folks are leaning, we got to go offense. Where are you at? Is it still 50-50 for you? If the best defensive player on the board is there, they pull the trigger on that regardless of how much money they spent in the offseason in free agency on defense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't have enough defensive linemen, pass rusher, front 7 type guys. I think that's pretty clear, especially – given the age of some of the guys that they do have in those positions. You've got to at least be ready for, you know, the next step in that and whatever those guys' careers are. So if Tyree Wilson, who is a great size fit for what we sort of envision this scheme is going to be, is there and they love him, could they jump on him? Absolutely. You know, Myles Murphy for me is a real wild card. Myles Murphy could go in the 2nd round, but it's also not going to shock me if somebody jumps up. We just kind of quit talking about him because he didn't work out at the combine and just kind of fell off the radar a little bit. I think Myles Murphy is a guy who could jump into the top 15 somewhere. And is that at number 8? Potentially.
And then you mentioned the offensive lineman. We already talked about Skoronski and Paris Johnson. That's certainly a need there. Do you feel this draft is deep enough that if we don't do all the things we're talking about, we can get an offensive lineman that could start in the 2nd round?
Yeah, you can find a guard. I think you can find a guard in the 2nd round. But, you know, I think that's dangerous. If you're looking for a starter there, you may need to go the 1st round because, you know, based on the way I look at this draft, you're going to get a run in the 1st round on offensive linemen. Then you kind of fall back to a 3rd round. You fall back to guys like Joe Tippmann, the center at West Virginia.
Right.
You know, 3rd round type guys. So, you know, for me, there's a little bit of a gap in the 2nd round. If you're thinking we have to have a starter, I think you're a lot safer to go 8. I think you'd be more likely to find an edge rusher you could live with, a front 7 guy at 44 than an offensive lineman.
I know we drafted Justin Schaefer out of Georgia. A lot of folks had high hopes. He didn't really get traction, as we said last year. What about him, and what about Ebiketie? I mean, because if Ebiketie can advance his career by virtue of having so much better talent around him, then that validates that pick. What do you make of Ebiketie taking that leap this year?
Yeah, I just got to see what the defense looks like. I got to see where they want to play him. You know, he is a prototypical 3-4 outside linebacker. If they're going to be 3-4 and play those 2 outside linebackers, I really like his chances. If not, you know, is he going to play the strong side linebacker spot with Caden and Troy Anderson as the 3 linebackers, and you move Lorenzo Carter up to defensive end? And how does that work? I don't know. I've got to see, but they need Arnold Ebiketie. You know, they traded up for this guy. They believed in this guy.
Right.
And, you know, I think that Brian Nielsen feels like he can get something out of him. I just need to see where and how it's going to be before I render much judgment there.
Josh, great job as always, man. We appreciate you. Follow Josh Kendall. He writes for The Athletic, covers our Atlanta Falcons. We will talk to you next week, I'm sure, at some point. as we get towards the first round of the draft. It's going to be busy and fun. Josh, take care.
Thanks for having me.
He's laying out all the things Mike and I have talked about. Listen, guys, there are no wrong answers because we don't know if these players are going to work out. It's really about trying to figure out, again, the most impactful guy. Mike, we were talking about this, and we'll get into this. These edge rushers yesterday, talking to a buddy today, he's like, Dukes, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. None of these guys are, like, off the charts. They're good players. There are no great edge rushers in this draft where you go, I got to have him. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, Mike, well, then the Van Ness thing is definitely a no for me.
No, again, you and I were joking around. When I think of great defensive pieces, I don't necessarily think Big 12. Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech that everybody loves.